Hi everyone, Crista Cowan here with another episode of the Barefoot Genealogist. Today we're going to be short and sweet. We're going to be talking about double dating, and not the kind you used to do in high school. We're going to be talking specifically about the Julian and the Gregorian calendars. Now, those may not be terms that you're familiar with, so I will explain them. We'll talk about the dates that have been affected by this calendar and what that means for your family history research. So let's go ahead and dive in. Let's start first with the Julian calendar. The Julian calendar was adopted in 45 BC by Julius Caesar, and it just was a way of setting up the calendar that the Roman Empire could then have some uniform information across the empire. It also, of course, set up the calendar much like we are familiar with in the Western world today, 12 months, some fairly uniformity to the months, and that continued for quite a long time until about 1582. 1582 was when the beginning of the adoption of the Gregorian calendar occurred. It's called the Gregorian calendar because Pope Gregory was the Pope of the Roman Catholic Church at the time. And so it started actually from Italy and kind of rolled out to the Western world from there. Now, here's why this happened. The Julian calendar actually was too long. It had because of the way that leap years fell, as time went on, and we're talking obviously here hundreds of years between 45 BC and 1582. As time went on, because of the extra few hours in the Julian calendar and the way that they did not account for certain leap years, it got further and further away from the time that we know it now. As far as the holidays, the religious holidays that are based on the lunar cycles and some different things. And so Pope Gregory proposed this adoption of the Gregorian calendar in 1582. Now, the 25th of March is an important date. Excuse me. The 25th of March is an important date to remember because not everybody celebrated the New Year at the same time. So some people celebrated the New Year on the 25th of March. Some people celebrated it on the 1st of January. Some people celebrated it on the 25th of December. It just kind of depended. And so because of that shifting of the New Year, you end up with what we call double dating, which means different people wanted to account for the old style calendar and the new style calendar as transitions were happening, recognizing that a lot of people still looked at the 25th of March as the first of the year, and some people were now looking at the 1st of January as the start of the new year. Okay, and then the other date that you need to know about is 1752, which for most of us, and I'm talking about those of us who do research in the United States, in any of the British colonies or British records, 1752 is the year where most of the records that we're dealing with made that switch. That year, there's a little bit of an anomaly in that the year went from the 2nd of September, 1752, to the 14th of September, 1752. So it was one day to the next. And so if there are dates from the 3rd through the 13th of September that you come across, those are not actual dates because those dates did not exist in that year. The calendar went straight from the 2nd to the 14th of September. Now, I've just pulled this handy little chart here off of Wikipedia. I confirmed it with a few other sources, but theirs was the most concise, and so I just snipped it and dropped it in here just so that you have a reference for when some of these changes started occurring. So as you can see here, the first column listed here is the country, and I know lots of you are doing research in other places, Swedish records, Spain and Portugal, France, and so that's why I wanted to make sure you had a table that was a little more comprehensive than just my basic dates over here. So the country is listed in the left-hand column. Then in the center column, this is when they changed their year to start with January 1st. Excuse me. And as you can see, that happened oftentimes before they switched from the old style, the Julian calendar, to the new style, the Gregorian calendar. And so a lot of times what you'll see is what we call this double dating on records. And I'll show you an example here in just a minute where the first date is the old style and the second date is the new style, just so that they can account for the fact that they moved the beginning of the year from the middle to the end of March to the 1st of January. And you'll notice here, if we look at this last column then, that a lot of these countries made that switch to January 1st being the new year long before they ever made the switch to adopting the new calendar in its entirety. As a matter of fact, I don't think it's even on this list. I think Greece was the last country to adopt the Gregorian calendar, and they didn't do that, I believe, until 1923. So, 350 years of time passed from the time the Holy Roman Empire adopted the calendar to the time that Greece adopted the calendar here in the Western world. Now, keep in mind, of course, this is mostly just the Western world. Other parts of the world still sometimes use different calendars. I do a lot of Jewish research. The Hebrew calendar is still used in religious records for a lot of Jews. And so different calendars, different people, different times, different places in the world. But for most of the records you're going to be dealing with, these are the dates of importance. And so let's just look at a couple of examples of where this might affect the way that you are doing your research, the way this might affect how you're entering information into your database or into your family tree. So if I come over here to Ancestry.com, I'm going to go ahead and just do an easy search. One of the things that some of you might not realize is that you can search on any single piece of information just to see what comes up. And so I'm going to pick a date prior to that 1752 date, which is when all of the British colonies, including America, switched to the new calendar. So I'm going to go ahead and pick a birth date of 1723. Click search. You'll see we've got quite a few records here that fall into that date. I'm going to click on these Massachusetts town and vital records, and we can pick from any number of records. I went ahead and pulled one up ahead of time. Now, this is going to be a little tough to see. These are old ledgers, old birth, marriage, and death ledgers from towns in Massachusetts, and so there's a little bit of bleed through on the pages, and so they're not really terribly clear. But if I make it big, maybe you can start to see some of what we're talking about. Now, remember that March 25th date, okay? So March 25th, we come back over here to our chart, is the date where that used to be the new year. And if we come over here to the British Empire, you're going to see 1752 was the shift to January 1st being the new year. However, some other countries shifted way before that. And so from 1582 to 1752, sometimes in records you're going to see things like this. This is a birth record here for a woman named Elizabeth. She was born January 27th, 1726/7. So what they've done is, because it falls in that time period between 1582 and 1752, they have listed that she was born January 27th, 1726. Remember, because their year didn't end until March 24th. But they're recognizing that other people in the world are somewhere that January 1st was the beginning of the new year. And if that's the case, then it would be 1727. So you're going to see that a lot of times, and it's going to be on records where an event occurs between January 1st and March 25th. You'll see here's another one, February 13th, 1726/27. But if you look at some of these other records, May 6th, 1726, you'll notice it doesn't have that. And that's because it's after that March 25th date. Okay, so anything in the first 3 months of the year essentially are going to have double dating, because that's their acknowledgement that some people recognize January 1st as the start of the new year, and some people don't recognize it until March 25th. That's going to go right up until 1752. And then remember, in 1752, the calendar is going to go from the 2nd of September The very next day is going to be the 14th of September, and then we're just going to march our way right into 1753 with the 1st of January. Okay, so that's what that means when you see those double dates on some of these records. It also means that you just need to recognize that this date, May 6, 1726, does not exactly correlate with what we know as May 6, 1726. I would still enter this as the birth date because that's what's recorded as the birth date for this person. But I wouldn't worry about trying to convert it to what it would be in our calendar. I wouldn't get into that, okay? Just recognize or just know for yourself that that date is not exactly the same as the date that we recognize as that same day, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. I told you this was going to be short and sweet. I just wanted to give you an idea of some of the major dates of when those changes took place in that calendar, help you understand a little bit as you come across records like some of the old colonial records here in the United States, or if you start doing research into British records and get into Western Europe, that you're going to see some anomalies in some of those dating. Sometimes you'll see that slash with the double date. Wanted you to understand what that meant, and also understand that there was a shift in the calendar that affected the way that September occurred that year for the rest of us. That's all I have prepared for you today. Until next time, this is Crista Cowan. Have fun climbing your family tree.